There are moments in history when truth does not arrive as a declaration, but as a quiet recognition. Not something learned for the first time, but something remembered. A sense that what has always been true is drawing near again, not to overwhelm, but to restore. Across the Scriptures, wisdom is never rushed. She speaks patiently, forming understanding over time, shaping hearts before shaping events. She moves through longing rather than force, through invitation rather than command. And in every generation, she finds those willing to listen beneath the noise, to receive without striving, to wait without losing hope. This teaching is an invitation into that slower current, where restoration unfolds not through spectacle, but through alignment, not through fear, but through joy, not through domination, but through remembrance. What follows is not meant to persuade, but to accompany, to offer language for something many have already sensed quietly awakening within. From the beginning, before the foundations of the world were laid, the divine plan was already known in the household of heaven. Nothing unfolded by accident. Creation itself was shaped with wisdom, order, and foreknowledge, and within that order was a mystery carefully guarded, not absent but veiled, awaiting its appointed hour. Wisdom was present before the depths, moving with intention, delighting in the works of God, rejoicing in the inhabited world. She was not silent nor distant, but calling to those with ears to hear, calling in the streets, calling at the gates, calling within the heart. Yet not all perceived her voice, for wisdom is not seized by force. She reveals herself to those who love her, to those who seek with humility, to those prepared to receive. When rebellion entered and deception spread, light was not extinguished. It was withdrawn for protection. Life was not destroyed, it was entrusted. What followed was not abandonment, but exile with purpose. A removal meant to preserve what could not be corrupted. A separation meant to ensure restoration. Death entered through deception, not as a rightful ruler, but as an intruder. And where death gained influence, it did so by obscuring memory, causing creation to forget its origin, its calling, its first habitation. Yet even then, the plan remained intact. What was taken was never lost. What was scattered was never forgotten. Across generations, the children of the exile were raised within difficult terrain, sometimes surrounded by opposition, sometimes isolated, sometimes misunderstood, yet always being prepared. They were not absent from the world, but veiled within it, formed quietly, refined inwardly, taught discernment rather than display. Their preparation was not loud. Their training was not visible. But heaven was attentive. Creation itself began to groan, not in despair, but in anticipation. The earth, the heavens, and all that lives carried within them a longing, waiting for a revealing that would signal restoration rather than destruction. This groaning was not for escape, but for repair. Not for annihilation, but for renewal. In time, a sealing began, not of dominance, but of belonging. A first fruits company marked by faithfulness, truth, and devotion, not elevated by violence, but by alignment, not crowned by conquest, but by obedience. They were prepared to stand, not to consume, but to testify, not to rule by force, but to serve as witnesses to what is real. As this unfolding continues, the ministry of purification emerges, not as cruelty, but as mercy. Light exposes what cannot remain. What devours life is removed so that life may flourish. Systems built on deception dissolve. Powers sustained by fear lose their grip. Death, having overstepped its bounds, approaches its end. A standard is lifted, not hidden, not secret, not whispered in corners. It is seen, it is recognized. It calls together what has been scattered and draws home what has long been displaced. This signal is not political, not violent, not manipulative. It is unmistakable because it resonates with truth. The perishable gives way to the enduring. The corrupt yields to what is whole. What was once veiled begins to be revealed. Not all at once, not to satisfy curiosity, but to restore order. Wisdom returns to dwell among her own. Light is returned to its rightful stewards. Memory is restored. Identity is reawakened. And the great longing of creation finds its answer. the manifestation of mature sons and daughters who carry restoration rather than destruction, repair rather than domination, life rather than consumption, those who mend what was broken, those who stand in humility, those who remember where they came from and who they serve. This is not a myth for escape. It is a promise for renewal. Not fantasy, but faithfulness fulfilled. The end of chaos is not chaos itself. It is peace. The end of death is not emptiness. It is life restored. And the wisdom that once rejoiced at creation's dawn now prepares to rejoice again, as all things are brought back into alignment with the original design. Beneath the movements of history, beneath the unveiling of wisdom and the restoration of order, there is a more intimate work taking place, one that does not announce itself with signs in the sky, but with shifts in the inner world. Before anything is revealed outwardly, it is first reclaimed inwardly. The great deception was never only about power or rebellion, it was about forgetfulness. Creation did not merely fall, it forgot who it belonged to. Memory was fractured, not erased. Identity was blurred, not destroyed. And so the work of restoration begins not with overthrow, but with remembrance. This is why wisdom does not force herself upon the world. She awakens memory. She calls forth recognition. When she draws near, something ancient stirs within the soul. Not new information, but a knowing that feels older than language. Those who respond are not chosen because they are stronger, but because they are willing to remember. In this layer, the exile is revealed not only as a place, but as a condition of consciousness. One can dwell among light and still live in exile if memory remains dormant, and one can walk through darkness while already returning if remembrance has begun. This is why some awaken quietly, long before the world notices any change at all. Here, purification is understood differently. It is not primarily the removal of others, but the dissolving of what does not belong within. Fear loses its authority. False identities loosen their grip. The appetite for domination fades. What once fed on confusion can no longer survive where clarity has taken root. The sealed ones, in this deeper sense, are not marked by visibility, but by coherence. Their inner world begins to align with the order of heaven. Thought, desire, will, and action slowly harmonize. They become inhabitable spaces for wisdom, not because they are perfect, but because they are yielded. As this alignment spreads, the world begins to feel the change without fully understanding it. Systems dependent on distortion weaken. Narratives sustained by fear lose credibility. Chaos cannot maintain itself where truth is quietly embodied. The end does not arrive as spectacle, but as inevitability. This is how the standard is lifted in the deepest sense, not first in the sky, but in the heart. And when enough hearts are aligned, the outer world has no choice but to follow. What was once veiled is no longer concealed, not because it is announced, but because it is lived. In this layer, the manifestation of the sons and daughters is not about status or position. It is about likeness. They resemble the original intention. They carry the atmosphere of restoration wherever they stand. And creation recognizes them, not by name, but by resonance. This is the quiet victory. This is how chaos ends without becoming chaos again. This is how wisdom reigns, not by force, but by remembrance restored. There is a reason wisdom moves slowly when the world demands speed. It is not hesitation or weakness. It is a restraint born of mercy. What is being restored is not a structure, not a system, not even a doctrine. It is creation's capacity to receive without destroying itself. Light revealed too early becomes judgment rather than healing. Truth unveiled without preparation hardens the unready and shatters what cannot yet hold it. Wisdom knows this. She has always known this. That is why she veils herself, not to withhold, but to protect, both the bearer and the recipient. In former times, when humanity stood closer to innocence, revelation came swiftly. But after cycles of violence, domination, and misuse of power, the manner of revealing had to change. What was once given openly was taken and twisted. What was once entrusted was weaponized. And so wisdom withdrew. not in anger, but in grief, choosing concealment over exposure, patience over force. This delay is not an absence, it is cultivation. In this generation, wisdom works through capacity building. She forms vessels rather than spectacles. She teaches discernment rather than proclamation. She prepares hearts before altering history. The world longs for visible intervention, but heaven is first stabilizing the inner terrain so that what comes next does not repeat what came before. This is why many feel a tension, sensing that something is near yet not fully manifest. It is not a delay without purpose. It is an alignment in progress. The house is being strengthened before the weight of glory returns to dwell within it. Mercy is active here. If revelation arrived prematurely, it would provoke imitation instead of transformation. Identity would be claimed instead of received. Power would be asserted instead of embodied. Wisdom refuses to allow that cycle to repeat. So she works quietly, through longing, through remembrance, through a slow reorientation of desire, away from domination and toward stewardship, away from spectacle and toward faithfulness, away from consumption and toward care. Those being prepared in this season often feel unseen, overlooked, or delayed. This is not rejection, it is refinement. Their formation is inward because their assignment is restorative. They are learning to carry light without needing to display it, to hold truth without forcing it, to stand without conquering. When the unveiling does come, it will not shock the prepared, it will confirm what they already live, and it will gently disarm what has relied on distortion, because distortion cannot survive in the presence of coherence. This is how mercy triumphs without enabling harm. This is how wisdom reigns without repeating violence. This is how restoration arrives without recreating the wound. The delay is not denial. The veil is not distant. The silence is not absence. It is wisdom to choose the long arc of healing over the short thrill of exposure, ensuring that when what has been entrusted is finally revealed, it can remain, endure, and bring life rather than fracture. And when that moment comes, it will not feel sudden, it will feel right. At the far edge of restoration, beyond correction and beyond purification, there is a sign that cannot be counterfeited. It does not announce itself with fear, nor does it arrive through force. It emerges when the work is complete enough to rest. That sign is joy. Not pleasure, not excitement, but the deep, settled joy that signals alignment has been restored. From the beginning, creation was formed in delight. Wisdom rejoiced in the inhabited world. The divine order was not grim or burdensome. It was alive, relational, rhythmic. When disorder entered, joy was the first casualty. Fear replaced delight. Survival replaced communion. And the absence of joy became so normal that it was mistaken for maturity. But wisdom never forgot joy. She guarded it carefully, waiting for the moment when it could return without being devoured. This is why judgment is never the final word. Judgment clears what obstructs joy. Purification makes space for it. But joy itself is the evidence that restoration has succeeded. Where joy can remain without denial, without frenzy, without domination, wisdom has truly returned. In this final layer, the manifestation of sons and daughters is no longer measured by authority or visibility, but by atmosphere. They carry rest. They transmit peace. Their presence calms rather than agitates. They do not need to convince creation who they are. Creation recognizes them because it can breathe again. This is how the groaning ends. Not with silence, but with song. Not with erasure, but with harmony. Joy signals that death no longer governs the inner world. Fear no longer shapes perception. Urgency no longer drives action. What once needed control now flows in trust. What once consumed now participates. What once competed now cooperates. This joy is not naive. It has passed through sorrow and emerged intact. It does not deny what was broken. It testifies that healing has reached the root. That is why it is dangerous to systems built on anxiety. Joy cannot be manipulated. It cannot be threatened into submission. It exposes false power simply by existing. When wisdom fully dwells again among her own, joy becomes contagious. It spreads quietly, undoing despair without argument. It restores dignity without spectacle. It reveals truth without accusation. And creation responds, not because it is commanded to, but because it remembers how life was always meant to feel. This is the banquet prepared after the battle that never needed to be fought the way the world expected. The ones who learned restraint are not exhausted. The ones who learned mercy are not hollow. They sit, not as conquerors, but as stewards, at ease, attentive, alive. Here, the veil lifts not as an unveiling, but as a homecoming. Nothing foreign enters, nothing essential is lost. The family of life is reassembled, not in haste, but in harmony. And wisdom rejoices again, not alone this time, but surrounded by a creation capable of sharing her joy without breaking. This is how the story ends without ending. This is how restoration proves itself complete. Not by what is removed, but by the joy that finally remains. If this reflection stirred something tender within you, know that you are not late, and you are not alone. Wisdom does not measure readiness by speed or visibility, but by openness and trust. What is being restored unfolds at a pace that protects the heart and honors the long work already done. There is no need to force understanding or rush toward conclusions. What is meant to be recognized will come into focus gently, like dawn rather than lightning. Rest where you are. Let what resonated settle. Let joy, even in its smallest form, be enough for now. In the next teaching, we will continue by exploring how this quiet restoration shapes daily life, how alignment expresses itself in compassion, discernment, and peace, and how wisdom's presence becomes tangible not through words alone, but through the way we live and love. Until then, remain at ease. What is true is not fragile, and what is real does not hurry. This reflection opens a path we'll continue to walk together, slowly, gently, and with care, in the teachings ahead. Beloved ones, thank you for being here. If this teaching helped you, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps this message reach those who are seeking. To our new subscribers, welcome. And if you'd like to go deeper, we invite you to join as a member. The link is in the description and on our homepage. We are praying for you and standing with you in the light of Messiah, He, and Messiah, She. If you'd like to support the ministry, you can visit our store or bless our dear brother Michael through the Buy Me a Coffee link below. Thank you for your love and encouragement, and stay tuned for the next video. May the spirit of wisdom and peace rest upon you always.